You walk into a store, confident your fake return will work. What you don't know is the AI flagged you the moment you entered. Here's how this technology is catching scammers instantly. Welcome back to NeuroWire Signal, where we expose the invisible technologies shaping everyday life before they make headlines. If you want insight instead of surface-level news, like the video and subscribe. It helps this channel grow. Today, we're breaking down how a new wave of retail AI is snitching on return scammers, and why this shift affects honest shoppers more than they realize. Why retailers finally drew the line for years. Retailers treated return fraud as a necessary evil. Lenient return policies were seen as a competitive advantage, a way to build trust and loyalty. If a few bad actors exploited the system, that was considered the cost of doing business. That mindset no longer works. Return fraud has exploded in scale, sophistication, and organization. What used to be occasional abuse has become professionalized. Entire networks now exploit return policies across multiple stores, channels, and regions. Retailers didn't get stricter because they wanted to. They got stricter because they had to. What snitching AI actually means. When people hear that AI is snitching on returning scammers, it sounds dramatic, like cameras calling the police or systems publicly calling people out. That's not what's happening. This AI doesn't accuse. It doesn't conflict. It isn't shameful. It observes, correlates, and scores behavior quietly in the background. Instead of asking, "Did this person commit fraud?" it asks, "How unusual is this behavior compared to millions of others?" That difference changes everything, from single returns to behavioral fingerprints. If the receipt looked fine and the item was eligible, the refund went through. AI changed the frame. Now the system builds behavioral fingerprints over time. It notices patterns humans can't see, like timing, frequency, item categories, store hopping, refund methods, and policy edge pushing. One return means nothing. 100 micro patterns mean everything. This is where snitching begins. The shift from rule breaking to risk prediction. Old fraud detection relied on hard rules. Too many returns? Flag. No receipt? Deny. Outside the window? Reject. Scammers adapted easily. AI doesn't rely on rules. It relies on risk modeling. It assigns a likelihood score based on how closely behavior matches known abuse patterns. The system doesn't need certainty. It needs confidence. This makes it far harder to game. Why it feels like the system knows you. Many shoppers report feeling like stores suddenly remember them. Returns take longer. Refunds change to store credit. Extra ID is required. Policies feel stricter, but only sometimes. That's not paranoia, that's AI-driven personalization. Two customers can perform the same return and get completely different outcomes, based on risk profiles built quietly over time. What happens when you're flagged? Here's the part retailers don't advertise. When AI flags a customer as high risk, the system rarely blocks them outright. Instead, it applies soft friction. Refunds are delayed for review. Cash refunds become store credit. Return limits quietly tighten. Verification steps increase. No confrontation, no explanation, just friction. To the customer, it feels arbitrary. To the system, it's calculated. Why retailers call this fair? Retailers argue this approach is more fair than blanket restrictions. Instead of punishing everyone with harsh policies, AI targets the small percentage of customers responsible for most abuse. In theory, honest shoppers benefit. In practice, edge cases exist, and that's where controversy lives. The honest customers caught in the middle. AI doesn't understand intent. It doesn't know you bought 3 sizes because online sizing is inconsistent. It doesn't know accessibility issues, force frequent returns. It doesn't know the context. It only knows patterns. That means some honest customers may be flagged, not because they're dishonest, but because their behavior statistically resembles abuse. Efficiency improves, empathy decreases. That's the trade-off. Why retailers are willing to accept that risk. From a business perspective, return fraud costs billions annually. Those losses show up as higher prices, reduced benefits, and stricter policies. Retailers believe AI-driven enforcement reduces overall harm, even if it occasionally misfires. It's not about perfection. It's about damage control at scale, how cross-store intelligence changes the game. Many retailers now rely on third-party fraud detection platforms. These systems don't share personal identities, but they do share behavioral insights. Patterns flagged at one retailer influence risk models at others. That means behavior in one store can indirectly affect treatment elsewhere. This is where the snitching metaphor becomes uncomfortable. Why this is all happening quietly. Retailers don't want public backlash. Customers don't like feeling watched. They don't like opaque systems deciding fairness. And they definitely don't like the idea of being scored. So retailers frame this as loss prevention, policy optimization, or customer experience improvement. The language is soft, the systems are not. The privacy questions. Nobody answers clearly. What data is being used? How long is it stored? Who has access? Can customers appeal AI decisions? These questions rarely get clear answers. Why regulators are starting to pay attention. Algorithmic decision-making in consumer contexts is under increasing scrutiny. Governments are asking whether AI systems should be explainable, appealable, and auditable, especially when they affect access to money, goods, or services. Return fraud AI may soon face the same scrutiny as credit scoring systems. That conversation has just begun. Why this is bigger than retail. This AI isn't just about returns. It's part of a broader shift toward automated trust enforcement. Anywhere trust can be abused, AI is stepping in. Subscriptions, warranties, promotions, loyalty programs. Retail is just the most visible front line. The psychological shift customers are feeling. For decades, shopping relied on assumed trust. Now trust is conditional, continuously evaluated. That changes how people feel about commerce. You're not just a customer anymore, you're a risk profile. That subtle shift affects behavior, even if people can't articulate why. Why most people will still accept this. Despite discomfort, most shoppers will tolerate AI enforcement. Why? Because it's invisible, because it targets scammers, because convenience remains high until it doesn't. As long as friction stays low for the majority, resistance stays minimal. When AI gets it wrong, the real test comes when AI makes mistakes. Customers denied returns without explanation, refunds delayed unfairly, policies enforced inconsistently. Without transparency, frustration builds. Retailers know this, which is why human override still exists, even if it's increasingly rare. The business logic behind silent retailers don't explain these systems because explanation invites debate. Debate slows adoption. Adoption reduces losses. From their perspective, quiet deployment is the safest path. Why this tech will only get smarter. Early systems were blunt. Newer models learn continuously. They adapt to new fraud tactics. They reduce false positives. They refine risk scoring over time. This means enforcement becomes more precise and harder to notice. Once deployed, these systems don't go away. They evolve. What honest shoppers should do differently. This isn't a call to panic, but awareness matters. Frequent returns, policy edge pushing, patterned behavior. AI doesn't care why, it cares how often. Understanding that reality helps avoid surprises. Why this feels like snitching. People don't mind rules, they mind invisible judgment. AI doesn't warn you. It doesn't explain itself, it just changes outcomes. That silent enforcement feels like betrayal, even when it's statistically justified. This AI didn't show up to accuse. It showed up to remember, and memory changes how trust works forever. If this breakdown helped you see what's happening behind the return counter, like the video and subscribe to NeuroWire Signal. Because the most powerful AI doesn't shout, it quietly decides.